A warm welcome to all of you and a heartfelt namaste. I, Anuradha Shada, would like to thank all of you for watching my videos, liking them, writing in your suggestions and your comments. Of the suggestions that we have got, one of them has been about Karako Bhav Nashaya. Before we move on to the entire thing of Karako Bhav Nashaya, which means the Karak of a particular house, if it sits in that house, it destroys the house. So let us talk about Karaks in general. Karak means a duty or when a planet is assigned certain values to it, be it the living value or be it the living being, be it your sentiments, be it some feelings or some abstract things associated with it, or the non-living things associated with it. So when we're talking about sun could represent the first house, the ninth house, the 10th house. It could represent your health, it could represent your father, it could represent your boss. So it is the Karaka for the first house, ninth house and the 10th house. Also, sun represents honor for us. It represents those values of ethics and morals for us. And it also represents a robust health. Sun also represents the element of gold or copper. And it also represents rubies. So we see that the Karakas of the sun are numerous. They are living, as in the father and the boss, and they're also kind of feelings, kind of abstract things like honor. They are the thorny trees, and it is also the Mool Karak or Jad Karak, that is the non-living, which can be the copper, or it can also be a ruby and such things, or it can be wheat. So these are the Karakas. Now, when we're talking about the Karakas in this sense here, Karako Bhav Nashaya, we are actually talking about the living beings only. So they can represent in the ninth house, they can represent your father, they can in the 10th house represent your boss. So all these things we need to understand on the first level. Secondly, let us know as to what is the representation of each house, by which planet is each house represented. Sun is represented by the first house. Sun represents the first house. It is the Karaka for the first house, Jupiter for the second, Mars for the third, Moon and Mercury together for the fourth, Jupiter for the fifth, Mars and Saturn for the sixth, Venus for men for the seventh house, Jupiter for women for the seventh house. Saturn represents your eighth house. Jupiter and Sun again represent the ninth house. Sun, Mercury, Jupiter and Saturn represents the 10th house, and 11th house again is represented by Jupiter, Saturn representing the 12th house. So when the Karaka is sitting in that particular house, say Venus is sitting in a particular in the 7th house, or is aspecting the 7th house, and it is very strong, there are chances that person can have a happy married life also. But what are the chances that the person will have a bad married life? If we go to the D9 as per IRG's principles, underlying he says that we need to check out the relevant divisional chart. If we go to the D9 and we see that in the Lagna of the D9 is the presence of Venus, or Venus aspects the Lagna of the D9 and is afflicted, the chances of a happy married life are literally very, very low. The chances of getting married or the chances of sustaining a marriage is very, very low. Here I would also like to point out a point. The benefics, when they are very, very strong and afflicted, when they are very strong, the stronger the benefic, the more it has, or any planet for that matter, or malefic, the more it has the propensity to deliver a greater result. Now, the greatness of the result can work both ways. It can give you bad results and it can give you good results also. In case of Karako Bhav Nashaya, when we're talking here, Venus is very strong in the chart. So it becomes very it delivers the result in a very strong manner. That is, it may not give you the happiness of marriage. Before I move ahead, let me tell you that I have a basic course in astrology in English coming up. So if you're interested, you can enroll through our website, or you can also write to us on our WhatsApp number and we will guide you through. Again, when we're talking about Jupiter, so let us take a case study here and see. When we are talking about Jupiter here, this person has his Jupiter in the 5th house. This is not enough. We need to see that Jupiter is in its own sign and retrograde. Retrograde planets delay but do not deny. 1 and 2 in its own sign, which is a fruitful sign. So it will definitely try to give a child. And this person, his wife, did conceive couple of times, but she could not continue on with the pregnancy as she had miscarriages. Now, why did it happen? Let's go to the relevant divisional chart. When we go to the relevant divisional chart, we see that Jupiter is sitting in the 7th house and aspecting the Lagna of the D7. In such a case, Jupiter here becomes very, very afflicting here for this Lagna. And we also see that Rahu and Saturn actually throws in its light on Jupiter, which also will say that a person may have problems in having a child. Now, having your own child could be a problem, but can you have an adoption? Can you adopt a child? And do you have happiness from children? How do we see that? Goel sir always says that for any relevant chart, we need to see the 4th house to see if a person has happiness from that relevant chart. So if you take the 4th house of the D7 and see whether this person will have children, then we see that the 4th house is in a Papkartari. Sun from one side is afflicting the 4th house, whereas a very strong Saturn, retrograde Saturn and Rahu would afflict this house from the other side, showing that he doesn't even have happiness from children. Again, we take another case of children where Jupiter again is in their own house, and Jupiter here is in the 5th house, again in its own house of Sagittarius. And they say this is a house where children should happen because this is the sign of Jupiter. Again, one point to note is Jupiter here is sitting in the Mool Nakshatra. Mool Nakshatra is the nakshatra of destruction. Firstly, things get destroyed and then things start working for this nakshatra. So she had conceived, but she had lost the baby due to certain complications. We also go to the relevant divisional chart. In the relevant divisional chart, that is again D7, we see that Jupiter is sitting with Sun and Saturn in the Lagna itself. First and foremost, Jupiter is sitting in the Lagna. That's not a very right thing. And secondly, Jupiter is sitting with Sun and Saturn, two very strong malefics. So even if Jupiter wanted to give, which it did, she could not continue on with the pregnancy due to medical problems. Again, we can take the same chart here. We say the 5th house is the house of grandparents and grandfather. When we go to her relevant D12 chart, the Lagna is afflicted and Jupiter also aspects the Lagna. So her grandfather passed away when she was a very young child, very small child. These things we need to check out very, very strongly before we pass the verdict of Karako Bhav Nashaya and create tensions for ourselves or others. You will find in many charts that Jupiter could be sitting in the 5th house, but if the D7 chart is not afflicted, does not show any connection of Jupiter aspect or Jupiter in the Lagna, people can have or if there is benefic, very strong benefics for the Lagna or on the seventh house, or with Jupiter. In such cases, the chances of having children are quite high. So before we make a verdict about Karako Bhav Nashaya or have a negative impact about Karako Bhav Nashaya, we do need to check the relevant D chart. There's more to come on all these things, but if you are interested in learning, then I have a basic course in English coming up at the end of June. If you are interested, do write to us on our email ID, or you can WhatsApp us on the address given below. Till we meet you again, do like, subscribe, and continue watching us, writing in your comments.